My humble respect to Guru Mahan, Guru Piran Srisankaran, Guru Piranyo, fellow Jnanis. Uh, the last few satsangs and lectures I've been covering Swamiji's meditation technique, the uniqueness of the technique and the kind of benefits one get from the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then the nape eye. And we went through some of the techniques, how one practices it, and also the benefits that one gets. So I'm going to continue with this discussion in terms of Mahan's meditation technique. So I think just to remind all of you all, there are 3 major stages of the initiation. The first one is the first stage, which is awakening the third eye. That is really important for the Guru imparts that knowledge, that electromagnetic force field, to awaken your third eye so that you become more aware of your own force within you. So it's helping you to focus your mind, and it helps you with the intellectual growth. And it'll be a very important source for our own wisdom. So that focused mind and the intellectual growth. And I said to you, discuss in previous satsangs why this happens. Critical thinking and all improves because there's a physiological change that takes place in that part of the brain. Then Swamiji shows the descending step, which is essentially bringing the energy back down to the base. And this is very important for the health of the body and the overall well-being. Because when the flow of energy is brought up and then brought down, through the spinal cord, all the various neurotransmitters and also the nerves, the passages are opened up, and you see that the flow becomes much more, easy. So this second stage is very important. You have to practice this second stage very well in the 6 days that the Guru teaches you. And then subsequently, one can practice this when the body is a little bit tired or when you have all kinds of ailments, that this will help strengthen the body. And the third stage is essentially what Swamiji calls the cleansing stage. And the cleansing stage is that there are a few practices that the Guru will initiate. And one of the major practices is actually to bring that energy back to the top eye. And I described that in my previous YouTube. And part of this is there are a few things that the Guru will do. And one of the aspects is that the Guru will gaze the eyes of the disciples and pass that energy, that electromagnetic energy, to the eyes of the disciple. Only an experienced Guru can do this. Normally, in most of the practice, only a very senior Guru will initiate the third stage. Normally, most other Gurus will do only first and second stage. Only the Guru Piran or a very senior Guru will initiate the third stage, because the third stage has got a lot of key things that goes with that practice. And I'll explain that in a little bit more detail. Okay, so this third stage is very important to essentially quieten the mind down and help the mind achieve that blissful universal experience in that connected state. Then, so this is what we have. I've gone through this, and I want to spend a little bit more time on how the Guru plays an important role. And this is a very important picture. This happens in the third stage, but in the first stage, remember, the Guru actually passes on that energy to the disciple. So there's a transformation that happens. The same thing with the second stage. The Guru actually is channeling that energy by the touch. So one of the initiation is through touch. First stage and second stage. Some parts of third stage is also the touch. But there is a very interesting, ritual, or you can say a kind of a mode of igniting that Kundalini energy in it. Is this third stage, Swamiji actually uses the gaze of the eye to really penetrate through the eyes of the disciples to pass that energy. Only a very senior and a powerful Guru can do this. there are various things that goes with this, right? The guru passes this, and normally the distance is about 8 feet. And the disciple sits down, like how this picture shows, and the guru gazes in the eye without blinking. Neither disciple nor the guru will gaze, and the guru channels that energy through the eyes. Now, in that process, this whole process, the guru not only passes the energy, but also the guru passes the noble qualities to the disciple. This is why it's very important that the guru must be of steady mind, must have that nobility and the pure qualities, because that's what the guru is going to transmit to the disciple. And in that process, whatever noise, whatever knots, whatever blemishes in the mind will be neutralized by the guru. So this stage is very important. Somewhat like the spiritual download that takes place from the guru to the disciple through this initiation process. So this is a very important initiation process, and this has to be done under the guidance and by the senior guru. So this is like somewhat like your internet. You're downloading your softwares, and if there's a bug in that software, you see that your software that you run will have that bug, right? So it's very important for the gurus to have a pure, divine, noble mind, a steady mind, to be able to channel that energy, that force, and that spiritual download to the disciple. So this happens in this stage of initiation. And similarly, the thoughts of the guru through this process and subsequent process transforms the disciple. I wrote in the article today that I have seen many disciples by many, many gurus, right? And we see that most of the disciples are very similar to the guru. Somewhat they share the DNA, the spiritual DNA. Very similar to if your father has certain qualities, most likely a high probability that we will share that qualities. In that same way, if a guru is kind, a guru is gentle, graceful, is an explorer, pushing the boundaries of knowledge, that mindset is passed on to the disciple. But if the guru has a negative and destructive mindset, a mindset that complains, you see that oftentimes is imprinted on the disciple. So this is something that Mahan himself has said. So I observed also many years, Swamiji has appointed so many gurus, but you see that the qualities of the disciple mirrors very closely to the qualities of the guru itself. So that spiritual download is so important. That is why this third stage is often done by a very experienced, very noble guru, right? So when that download takes place, so not only this initiation process is so important, but after that, so one is this initiation takes place through touch. The other one is by the vision and the view and the gaze. The third one is through thoughts. The guru constantly thinks about the disciple, right? So the thoughts of the guru transforms the disciple. When the disciple is going through difficulties and challenges, the guru will know. The guru will quietly meditate when he sees the disciple, okay, don't worry, everything will be okay. Or when the disciple is in the meditation hall, the guru will sense. These are the questions that the disciple has. These are the queries he has. These are the challenges. So in that satsang, he actually gives soothing words. He will give generally, but those soothing words are essentially words of encouragement, words to help those disciples. So the third form of initiation is through the thought of the guru. The thought of the guru transforms. If the thought of the guru is not so good, it impacts the disciples too. The words of the guru also is very important, right? So when the guru is encouraging, even during the most difficult period, the guru must always be gentle, kind. It's okay, let it go. Right? The words of the guru also is very, very important. Cannot be harsh. The words of the guru must be full with rich wisdom, knowledge, right? Imparting that continuous liberation and wisdom, even during the most difficult moments of one's life. So the touch, the gaze, the thoughts, the words, and the actions, the lifestyle of the guru also plays a key role in transforming the disciple. The guru is the role model for the disciple. If the guru, is seen to not follow the principles of what divine living is, it impacts the disciples too. So we see this in many of the scriptures, and I have seen this in Mahan's lives and Guru Sankaran's lives, and many other gurus' lives on how they lived and the kind of knowledge that they pass on. So I call this a spiritual osmosis. Spiritual osmosis means that an example of that is that when you have a very strong magnet and you have a piece of metal that is not magnetic, when you bring that magnet close to the piece of metal, eventually the piece of metal becomes magnetic. So when the guru is very close, embedded in the thoughts and the mind, and the words and the actions of the disciple transforms to become the guru itself. The guru never leaves. So this stage of initiation through gaze, and then the follow-up of the guru thinking, the words of the guru, all those actually helps nurture the disciple to go in the path of what the guru is. Should the guru have, blemishes, it shows in the disciple. So sometimes I see certain disciples, they're very egocentric, they're this, and I look at the guru too have the same qualities. Whereas I see some gurus so gentle, kind, and you see that in the disciples too. So this is something that we see that the DNA, the spiritual DNA is passed on. So I always tell people, choose your gurus, your coaches, your mentors very well, right? So this is something that we see in this practice of this gurus. I want to go on to some of the benefits, and I spoke about this the last time. When we do this meditation very well, a few things that happens, our brain becomes healthy, our body becomes healthy, our mind becomes really, really strong. We have that emotional well-being, sense of peace and tranquility and happiness dawns upon us. The sandosanala, we ourselves will like ourselves. We feel, we want to spend time with ourselves, right? Shut down the noise, the music, the movies, everything, and you want to actually be with yourself. You build this winsome personality, a kind, gentle, refined personality. You have this positive attitude, can-do attitude. Your mind becomes agile and adaptable, and you have that mental stamina, right? You have this mental stamina. I'll tell you some of the qualities of that later on. You become a lover of knowledge, right? You have that intellectual curiosity, explorer. For me, Mahan was that, Guru Sankaran was that. And that DNA was passed on. I was fortunate enough to inherit almost 2,000 to 3,000 books of Guru Sankaran, and I look all his notes, and I have his whole notes of Mahan's teachings, which I'm going to share with all of you, how he connected everything. Right? So your creativity improves. You become more productive, you become more industrious, and you have that courage, that passion to know, passion to make a difference. We call that the grit mindset, patience, perseverance, persistence, and this is so important in our meditational. Sometimes we get distracted, sometimes we, get sidetracked, but The thought of the Guru, the teachings of the Guru, the words of the Guru keeps us on track. And that slowly leads us to that transcendental universal mindset. And I covered this. But in the next few lectures, I'm going to go in depth on some of the benefits of Mahan's teachings, because this is very important in our day-to-day life. So I'm going to cover, today I'm just going to touch only, but I'm going to go in depth on how this meditation is going to generate these 10 important capitals of our lives, right? Capital means wealth, right? I'm just going to touch, but I'm going to go in depth on how the 3 stages of initiation is going to initiate this. This is from the notes of Guru Sankaran. This is putting into practice, and this is something that I myself have experienced this. The first one is actually spiritual connectedness, right? There are 10 things that through Mahan's meditation we achieve, right? That spiritual connectedness, that spiritual compass. You know, all of us are guided by something, some by money, some by materiality, some by position, title. But somehow the gaze of the Guru, just now I showed you that the Guru downloads that spiritual software. And that spiritual software actually helps us to discover our own spiritual compass. If we try to understand, download it properly, and put it to practice. I'll give some examples in the next class on more detail, but I'm just going to give you an overview of the benefit of this Jnanavallal Paranjyothi Mahan's initiation process and the practice of his philosophy. That spiritual connectedness takes place. You discover the spiritual compass. You discover the purpose of your life, right? And in that process, you see that you understand the material universe, you understand the creator, the creative force, all creation, including ourselves. You know, when we have that, you see that, you know, when we practice this spiritual connectedness, our body and our brain becomes healthy. Refer back to some of the earlier one. Parts of our brain starts firing. You know, as we age, parts of our brain starts declining, you know. And here you see that it starts, it's called neurogenesis. Right? Parts of our brain, you know, it doesn't age fast. Our brain becomes healthy, our body becomes healthy. That's the physical capital. You know, we say that health is wealth, right? You can have all the money. If your body is not healthy, you lose all your money. Nowadays, medical costs are very high, right? So they say that you replace medication with meditation, right? So your body becomes healthy, your mental and emotional states become solid because now it's anchored on the spiritual compass. When both your connectedness, body, brain is healthy, your mental state is superb, your intellect can grow, the buddhi can grow. The intellect is able to analyze things, know what information to capture, how to capture the information, you know, in a strategic way for decision making. So the intellect becomes a powerful tool, right? And you see that suddenly our creativity improves, right? Our innovativeness improves. And we discover our own natural talent. In all of us, we have a natural talent because nature is part of us. Nature has not given everybody everything, but nature has given all of us something. So we need to discover that. When we do that, we become confident. You know, we don't look down at anybody, nor we, you know, look up. You know, we become humble. Humility becomes the core of our personality. We're able to relate to everybody. You know, the emotional intelligence is there to relate to everybody of different walks of life. You know how fantastic it is to have that emotional intelligence, the social capital, with yourself, with your family, with your spouse, with your children, with your office colleagues, with the society, with your neighbors. You know how that's the greatest happiness that you have. You don't harm anybody. Remember, I said earlier, depends on what the guru downloads to you, right? So that software of, you know, uh, peace and tranquility and the social intelligence starts taking place, right? So for me, that spiritual compass is the master software. And if you download that master software, all the other softwares will start operating very well. Empowerment, you have self-sufficiency, right? There's nothing you cannot resolve. Maybe you need a little bit of time, but this is fantastic. Later on, when I talk about when you're a student or when you're a professional, right? When you're building your business, when you're building your professional life, this number 8 is so important. How you become independent to chart your own destiny. And that's what leaders are about. Leadership is not about waiting for somebody else. Leadership is the qualities that you are able to lead others. First, leading yourself. I always like this term called CEO. I was, and I am still a CEO of a company, a research company. And I always wondered what the CEO means, the small CEO, Chief Executive Officer. But beneath the Chief Executive Officer is a big CEO, Chief Enlightenment Officer, right? The Chief Enlightenment Officer. If you are not enlightened, you would not have an executive power over anything, including your life, right? An enlightened CEO is one who is able to give direction and steer the organization into the right direction. So this is what leadership quality. The Swamiji was a leader in his own rights. Guru Sankaran was a leader in his own right. He was a trade unionist. My father was a trade unionist, right? So if we harness this, the leader in you will start showing up. And the last one is that actually Swamiji himself has said that when you do all this, you'll never be poor in this life. You'll always have enough resources to support yourself, your family, and others. Right? So we see that this is a practical and pragmatic, outcomes that one achieves in one's own life by practicing this Mahan simple technique, right? It starts with the spiritual connectedness, and it has a tremendous knock-on effect. I'll go into more detail in the next few satsangs of how this happens, what you need to do to observe and harness this. So where does this all lead to, right? Because we all live a material world. Although we are spiritual beings, we are in this material world, so we have to function really well. So this Mahan doesn't tell you have to run away from all your desires and aspirations. He says that there are 5 phases of our life that this meditation helps, right? The first one is that we are in a learning phase, the student phase. Can you imagine when we practice this as a student, our brain and our mind and our buddhi become so powerful that we're able to learn from our teachers very well. We don't get distracted. We have sharpness. We learn from nature. We learn from others. Our student life, we become an illumined student. Our student life improves significantly. This is number 1 phase. So, the moment we are born, we are continuously learning until we finish university. And then the next set of learning takes place, which is our professional life, right? We all have some kind of profession. And this mindset will transform our professional life into a powerful, successful professional life until we become empowered, self-sufficient. We don't have to depend on anybody for anything. As a matter of fact, we're able to support many people. Second phase of our lives. The third phase of our life is our family life. Whether we look after our parents, our siblings, or our wife and children, right? We see that there's greater harmony in the home front. If the home is not harmonious, none of the other phases of life will be harmonious. So we see this family life becomes more blissful. There's understanding, mutual giving and taking, right? And one another help each other to grow spiritually, grow intellectually, mentally, and also professionally. This is the third phase of life. The fourth phase of life is community. We have a responsibility to the community. And this is what Mahan did. Mahan discovered this knowledge, right? And I'll go through with you this Mahan went through this 5 stages of his life, right? Community life. He thought about, hey, I want to discover this. And I discovered through his hard work, these 3 stages of initiation. I want to be able to share it with everybody. He didn't look at, people of all walks of life were given this knowledge. That's why he's a Jnanavalal. So he was a community person. He was actually a social leader, right? Our community life starts thriving. And the last one is we become nature centric. We have this greater connection with nature. Remember, I said that part of this meditation is that we understand the creator, the creative force, all creation, and ourselves. So when we come to that final part, we see nature as part of everything, and we are part of nature. So we become nature centric, and we discover that creator in every facet of our life. So these 3 phases, if you see, Mahan went through this. He was a student, he was learning from the age of 11 onwards to the age of 38. He was learning and discovering, right? He had a profession. His original he was a trader, right? He gave it all up, and then he took a different professional life. He became a spiritual teacher. That was his profession, to impart that knowledge, though he did not pay much, but he stuck to it. That was his profession, to teach other people about this spiritual knowledge. He had a family. He looked after the family. He gave them all the necessary things, for the family to sustain. He was a community person, and finally, he was very, very nature centric. If you read his book, everything he says, we should not go against nature. After all, what's powering us is nature's force itself. Kundalini is actually our nature's force. So we are going back to nature. To some extent, it is samadhi. So this Mahan, through this practice and philosophy, taught us not to give up our desire, because no human beings will be able to give up the desires, but to learn to divinize these desires. Divinize every phase of our life. So can you imagine if you taught a student this knowledge, he or she would be a fantastic student, would become a great scientist, great discoverer, great teacher, great philosopher. Their professional life will thrive. Their family life will thrive. They become not just thinking about themselves and their family, but the extension of the family, the community, the people, like Mahan. And they will always contribute to not just the current generation, but the future generation, by making sure that whatever we do doesn't harm nature. So this is what this Mahan's teaching teaches us. It's teaching us to ensure that our health and well-being is good, teaching us our mental and emotional state is fantastic, our intellectual growth. All this is possible only through this spiritual practice. So the practice of this meditation must come coupled with the lifestyle choices that we make, right? And meditation alone is not enough. Meditation with the lifestyle choices, when they couple together, they reinforce one another, and you see that the lifestyle choices helps us to lead a fantastic, spectacular, enlightened life. And this is what I learned from Guru Mahan. I learned from Guru Piran Sivasankaran. I learned from Guru Piranyo. Mahan was a spiritual teacher, yes, but Guru Sankaran was a surveyor. He had a job, he had a family, he had to educate 5 kids. He had all the normal responsibility of an ordinary person, making sure there's money for children to study, making sure, they go to school, they study. All these challenges were there, but yet he, made sure that these Mahan's teachings was integrated in every facet of his life, made his home as the abode of Mahan, made his heart the abode of Mahan, his mind abode of Mahan, ultimately to realize that the Mahan, the Guru, was part and parcel of him. This is what these living Mahans that taught me, and all the notes that they have left, which I'm sharing with all of you. So if you did this, if your children did this, if your grandchildren did this, they will be fantastic. They'll have a fantastic life and an amazing, spectacular, way of life. This is what Mahan's teachings that taught me. Next class, I'm going to go a little bit more detail in terms of how those 3 stages of initiation has an impact on each one of this. How Mahan's 3 stages helps us the spiritual connectedness and the spiritual compass. What do I mean by that? How does it impact our spiritual body? So I'll go through a little bit more detail, spend some time to show the interconnection between Mahan's teachings, the philosophy, and ultimately our own way of life, living an enlightened way of life. Santosha.